Cheryl, I see you witnessed Carnival this year.
Yes, Bruce, I was out there.
Were you there last year also?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. So what you thought of this year? I didn't see any of it really.
Well, first of all, I can tell you that the people on the road are so self-absorbed, they don't need us to take their photographs because they all had their phones up in the air in front of them. It was so interesting. Like everybody was on live. Yeah, I was hanging with Ian, and at points we just like stop and put the cameras down because we were competing with the persons who were actually jumping carnival, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
the spectacle
when
was
you
there. A little bit more nakedness than I'm accustomed to. But it was fun. It was a nice
yeah, I
jaunt.
saw some of those images, yes.
Mhm.
I guess they're trying to keep down the cost by using less material.
I suspect they're they're not related.
But when you it can cost a lot, the hair and everything and
Yeah, but I suspect
the
that might be
nails.
the cost and the costume might be inversely proportional in terms of the amount of fabric. I don't think there's a lessening of the cost because of that. That's
I
just my
know.
perspective. I could be wrong.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. But the banks giving you loans now for carnival.
I hear you. When them
Yes,
can't afford house and I might as well go with costume, not true.
yes, and then so you have to share it in social media. Yeah, people have to know.
Interesting.
Hmm. I hear that there was a reggae group or dancehall group too. Do you see them?
I don't know if it's a whole dancehall group. I heard dancehall music. I knew they had trucks with people like Shinsi and stuff performing, but I don't know if the group was totally dancehall. You would have bands playing reggae, having mostly soca, but reggae they'd have some infusion of reggae along the line. But I don't
Okay.
know. I really wasn't paying that close attention. I don't recall a truck with just reggae alone. And then I
Okay.
don't know if I saw everything, eh?
Mm-hmm. Because I remember the last year that they had Byron Lee's Carnival, yeah, there was a section of dancehall bringing up the
Hmm.
rear. And
Okay,
of
okay,
course,
okay.
everybody on the street joined in on that one.
Mm-hmm. But I guess, I mean, this year I think it's two times now we have tried the dancehall road march thing. They did it in to coincide with Sting, and they did it in February in Reggae Month. Don't know how successful it was or the attempts were.
I didn't see much on that.
Hmm.
Much pictures going around on that one. Interesting. Interesting. Good. So Cheryl, you have been doing any shooting?
Not a lot, Rose.
Okay.
I want to say no, but I guess I've done a little bit, but no, not a lot.
Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this evening's meeting. How is everyone doing so far?
I'm
Very
good
well.
over here.
All right, great.
All right. Praying for some rain.
Ah, yes. We're going through a dry season now. I see even the farmers are severely affected. All right, before we get into the judging, let's kick off with a little trivia. Let's say the bright people in the group. All right, what does the acronym DSLR mean? Nobody? Where are the bright people?
They're not on yet.
Is that digital single leg reflex?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Bruce jumps to the front of the class. All right, that's one more. So there's a rule for shooting scenes in bright sunlight. Can somebody give me the name of that rule and the related camera setting? No one's familiar with that one? The landscape photographers?
Who are again not on this call.
All right, so this one is called the Sunny 16 rule. And the camera setting is to set your aperture to f16. All right, so we're about to get into the judging of our March theme because pattern and textures. All right, so for this evening's judging, our guest judge is Terrian Miller. Terrian hails from the beautiful garden parish of St. Anne, Jamaica. She's a graduate of the West Indies, of the University of the West Indies, sorry, holding a master's in economics and a certification in market research from the Mona School of Business. After first falling in love with photography, as a teenager, she continued to pursue her passion, achieving certification in photography and capturing moments and preserving memories, whilst carrying on in the corporate environment until she finally started her business, Taem by Taem. This started over 10 years ago. Today, as a creative director and a visual storyteller, she is known for translating ideas from concepts to creation for national and international clients. In public relations and marketing campaigns for government, tourism, and corporate sector. Her work can be seen on billboards, mainstream media, and corporate websites. Before she comes on, I'll give everyone a view of the photos that were submitted. Right. So, hand over to Terry.
Hey everybody, good evening. Thank you for inviting me here today. And thank you for the introduction, Dwayne. I hope everybody is good this evening, and I too hope that we have some serious rainy weather pretty soon because it's pretty hot. All right, so I'm just gonna dive quickly into the judging, and I just want to say first and foremost that when it comes to photography, one thing I can say is that it's highly subjective. Yes, there are rules, and in some case, it's a good starting point. But if as an artist, for you, in your composition, in what you're valuing, your creativity leads you in another direction that breaks the rules, go for it. So whereas I will give my views on the judging, I just want us to bear that in mind as a cursory note. Now, for this first one, Color Me Red. So I looked at the name first and foremost, and yes, I did use the criteria that was shared with me. But when I saw Color Me Red as the title, it sort of threw me when I saw the image. I don't know, I was expecting something so visually striking with the color red that I was left wanting. So I didn't really have a significant emotive impact from that. So I gave this, as it speaks to impact, I gave this a 6. Because yes, it's like shades of red. I see orange and other things there, but it really did not draw me in. For processing, it's good in terms of meeting the technical standpoint. So I gave that a 7. And for composition, I was a little bit torn between 6 and 7 for composition. Why? Because I feel like I could have been led a little bit more to the texture point from this image. It was still quite good. So I think I settled on 7 for it. So overall, that would be what, 20 out of 30. For the next image, Dwayne,
Yes,
which
sir.
is hard and soft. It's loading. Now for me, it had the variety hard and soft. It did live up to its name. Was it impactful for me? Not really. Even though it did live up to its name. Why? Because this was shot in some serious harsh light. And as a result, one of my backgrounds is landscape photography. And as a result, I knew it had so much potential for so much more. But in line, it was still a good photo. So I gave it a 5 out of 10 in terms of the technical components, knowing that they shot it in harsh light, they brought back the highlights, etc. So I gave that a 7 out of 10. Because it still had so much more, and yes, I see foreground, background, but it still had so much more potential for depth that I gave it a 7 out of 10, like I said before. Compositionally, I still think that more could be done as a result. I gave that a 7 out of 10 as well, because again, lived up to its name. You gave me contrast in terms of the colors. And I was able to settle on that. So that's what, 19 out of, is that 19 out of 30? For the next one, Dwayne, intrigue. Now I'm gonna say, I don't know if I'm being preemptive. For me, this was the winner of the competition. This right here, everything, it drew me in immediately. My eyes immediately was drawn to the off-center composition. I got the texture. I love that. This was, whoever processed it went black and white on this capture. Everything about this image was, for me, in terms of impact, I gave it an 8 out of 10. In terms of treatment, likewise, 8 out of 10. Why? You see the points of the prickle, you see the leaves, you see the fold. It gave me that this person thought from start to finish in terms of the contrast, the shadows, everything. It gave me all of that. But the most impactful thing is the fact that they went off center with that bud being, as opposed to having it dead center. I think that's what won it for me. Next one, please, Dwayne.
What was the third score?
Oh, sorry, that was an 8 out of 10 as well. All of, yeah. So it was 8, 8, and 8. I like that this person did not go typical. They actually went for the shadow. Love that. I love that it was sand. The sand itself had its own texture. The shadow had its texture. I really hated personally that stick was in the shot. It distracted so much from the shadow effects, the sand effect. And personally, I saw, maybe the person can explain, but I saw no value to the top of that image, having the shade from the other tree. It was more, so I got distracted. So I think that it had the potential for so much impact for me personally, but that is where I got thrown. So I gave it 6 out of 10 for impact. For the technical component, like I said, I would have removed certain things, but I can see I would have probably, well, that's the composition. So from the technical standpoint, it could possibly benefit from some additional color treatment, maybe be a black and white as well. I can see where somebody is walking across the shot. I gave that a 7 out of 10. In terms of the composition, I was really torn between 6 and 7 because it really had so much more potential. At the end of the day, I settled on 7. But I really think that this could have had so much more potential based on this image. So it's a 6, 7, and 7 for my ratings. So that's what. Okay, this shot. Nature line is, sorry, is this nature? Yes, nature lines. You are in line with the name of your capture. And for that, I commend you. And I have a little heavy sigh here because it lived up to its name. It impacted me, yes. But then I had a pause because I was like, it seems so unnatural. I wasn't sure how to feel about it, but based on the impact, I gave it 7 out of 10. But I did that with a little bit of reservation. But from the technical standpoint, I had to go low because it's I don't know if you took something and then you cropped in to create this effect. So I had to give you a 4 out of 10 because everything here is out of focus. Is that intentional? It could be. It was just soft throat. Did you achieve texture? I'm not sure if you did. So I am still torn, but I settled on 4 for that. In terms of the composition, I would have liked the connecting point, if you can call it that, to either be more on the rule of third side of things or dead center possibly. It had so much more potential. So I settled, where is it? Nature lines. I settled on 7 for the composition, but I was really, really disappointed on the technical component and whether you actually achieved the objective of the assignment, of the competition today. May I have the next one, Dwayne? All right, rocky shapes. I love water. I love landscape. I'm gonna say that. So I can say, I don't know if that introduced some level of bias in my view, but the impact when it was so lost. The rocks for me were lost in this image. Yes, I see the texture. Yes, I see the variety. It was lost, I suppose, because of the overexposed nature or something. It just, it did not feel like a lot was put into this capture, to be honest. And as such, it never drew me in terms of impact. And as such, I gave you a 4 out of 10. Like I said, the texture for me is a little bit, even though you have the waves and it was a rough sea day, and yes, I see light and shadow. The texture still is a little bit lost for me. So I gave it a 5 out of 10 for technicality, and for the composition, I had to settle on 4 out of 10 because overall, it still seemed like the rocks was just lost with the ocean, even though it's 2 different things. So the result for me was what, 4 for impact, 5 for technical component, and 4 for composition. May I have the next one, Damien? Sorry, Dwayne. Okay. This one was called sculpture. Yes, sculpture. I was truly lost with this one. And the reason why, okay, yes, you say sculpture, I assume you went and you took a shot. And then there's, I don't know if this is an earring, it's a piece of art. Maybe it's abstract in your view of the lighting, the overexposed lighting from the top to it really gave me no emotion, to be honest. It did not live up to the name. If if you're isolating a part of a sculpture, I would have rather more macro component or something if you're going abstract. But I wasn't sure why we had the artwork there with the backdrop. I wasn't sure what was the sculpture that I was looking at. And in terms of the texture, I really was lacking. However, I gave this a 4 out of 10 for impact. The technical component, I had to once again go 4 out of 10 from my look at the image. At least the whole top section of the image is completely overexposed to the point that a lot of it is lost. Yeah, I see the texture at the bottom, but like I said, is it striking? I'm not sure, once again, if this is meeting the target or the objective of the competition. And in terms of the composition, it really left me wanting significantly. So I had to give that one a 3 out of 10 for the sculpture. May I have the next one, please? I gotta say, this table patterns, I think this is one of the images. Yes, I can see that it is out of focus completely, but it says textures off the bat. It meets the whole textures component. I actually loved it completely in terms of meeting that goal. I gave it a 7 out of 10 for that. From the technical standpoint, I really wanted to give this more because it had so much potential, but I could, because it's completely out of focus, there's no focal point anywhere, even though it met the textured goal, it was completely out of focus. I had to give it a 3 out of 10. Compositionally, it still has more to be desired, but there's something about it that I still appreciate. And as such, I gave it a 6 out of 10. May I have the next one, please? Yeah, so the tower. I know you said the tower, and I get the tower. However, I find myself not drawn to looking at the tower when I look at this image. It is competing with the other section, the wall, the grid pattern to the left. It's loaded with texture everywhere. However, it's fighting, even though it is so mammoth in the image, it's still fighting to be seen. I gave it a 5 out of 10. It really didn't impact me significantly, but it's a good shot. And even though the name said the tower, I still found myself unable to settle on focusing on it. So from the technical standpoint, I also gave it a 5 out of 10 for that. Compositionally, I think that maybe taking another angle that showcased the tower more and less of the other aspects that you've included could have helped your capture so much more. And as such, I had to give you a 4 out of 10 for that one. May I have Vortex, please? I love the shot. I see texture. I see layers upon layers. I see, my eyes are completely drawn to the center of this caption. sorry, this capture. It's still a little soft. I think the focal point would have been dead center. I'm not sure if you had a macro lens or not. So you probably took a picture and then cropped in. I'm not too sure. And that sort of hurt you at the end of it. But in terms of the impact, I gave it a 7 out of 10. I don't know, the colors, I like that you kept the whole pastel vibe. You didn't go overboard, you didn't overdo it in terms of saturation. It gave me like a soft, warm hug feeling. Like I said, the out of focus component did hurt the potential of this shot. And as such, I had to give it a 5 out of 10. Composition, you went center. It works. I like that you kept, I think those are blossom. Is it blossoms or petals that it added more depth to your capture. So I gave that 7 out of 10. May I have the next one, please? Windows reflection. Now, I just want to say ahead of time, I'm glad that this was the last photo that I had to review. It gave me a sense of this person not going typical and thinking a little bit outside of the box, and I commend them for it. That being said, the impact of this capture, I gave it a 5 out of 10, and I'll explain why. The impact is affected by several things that relate to technical and composition. But so I think that I gave it the 5 because I liked where this person's head was going on at. In terms of the technical component, I was woefully disappointed because the edit did not match your capture. And also everything it looked soft. I'm not sure if you're the one who added that vignette. I'm not sure what's going on there. I see this vignette, this pale vignette, but it really, it's a grainy capture that's out of focus. And whereas, yes, I do see textures, it's just so soft. It really hurt me to say that I had to give this one a 2 out of 10. Compositionally, I see the potential. I love where you're going with this. I love reflections personally. So I gave that a 6 out of 10. Yeah. So I think those are all of them. Doing.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
All right, so based on the scores, the top 3 are Intrigue, Follow Me Red, and Midday Folly. Can we have the photographer for Intrigue share their views and tell us a little about it, man? Is Robert here? No. I don't see him as if Robert is here. Color Me Red, Sherrard. Are you there, Sherrard?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. I
Good evening.
apologize. I got knocked off during part of the judging. So good evening to our judge. I didn't hear your comments on my image. But this was an image I captured. Well, I struggled with the topic a little bit in terms of trying to find something that
Can we
included
see the
texture.
image? Can we see the image?
Wait. I don't know, so really on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggled a little bit with the topic in terms of finding something that demonstrated texture and patterns in everyday life. And so I think this was one day I was just driving around downtown with my camera and I saw this red. It had a pattern definitely, but then I saw in the wall itself the peeling paint. And what this demonstrated to me was that there was an underlying color, which I guess was the original color of the brick. And I think the color of the brick has to do with the minerals and stuff within the whatever they used to make the brick. But then on top of that, you can see that someone actually painted the wall as well. So you have the stripping paint, which colored the original red brick, and there are two different shades of red. So I found this intriguing, and this is why I decided to submit this image for judging.
All right. Grandma here for you.
Thank you, Cheryl. The third image is the Folly done at Zaka. She's here. No, she's not. The next one in line would have been Vortex, Edward Miller, who scored 9. Here, all right, do we have any general comments? Do you have any general comments about the images and questions for Terry?
Pardon?
Go ahead, Bruce.
Hello, am I on?
Yes, Bruce, I'm hearing.
Yeah, I got knocked off a while ago. Yeah, I would like to thank the judge for taking the time to judge the images. Unfortunately, I didn't submit any, but I certainly agreed with almost all of her comments on it, on the images, and I could feel her disappointment in some of the images because something significant let you down, and you really want to say something great about it, the image, but you are forced to comment on it. But I congratulate all the persons who entered, and particularly this image that is up here is certainly an excellent image. The last image that was shown, I liked it. I would love to hear from the photographer how they captured that image and what it was, and Yes, this particular one. I find it interesting.
That's from Denise.
Yes.
Denise, can you share some info with your image?
Good evening.
Lost to Denise.
Denise, if you're speaking, we're not hearing you. Mic is open. We're not getting anything from Can you hear?
I'm not sure what's happening, Denise, but I'm hearing you clearly.
But I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. My end. Yes. And also, you can tell me, Denise, please, about there's some little things coming off the main image there to the sides. I was curious what those were. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I couldn't sleep tonight if I didn't know.
All right, thank you for that, Denise. Are there any other comments, questions? Okay, that's it. All right, thank you very much, Terry.
You're welcome, and thank you again for inviting me, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I will excuse myself while you guys continue your session. Bruce, thank you for saying that you agree with most of my comments. Again, photography is highly subjective, and I respect everybody in their art form, however they choose to present their art. I highly respect that as well. And Denise, like I said, that especially in terms of your capture, I am a massive fan of not going with the grain. I love to go against the grain. So I love that you took a different approach with your capture. It is, I'm happy that you said that you explained that the pattern in the tile is what you're going for, and you're saying that you probably should have gotten that more in focus. I would have loved for that to be the case. But again, to everyone, I commend you all, and thank you again for inviting me.
You are most welcome.
You're welcome. Have a good one, guys.
All right, take care.
Cool.
So for our next section, we have a presentation from one of our own, Cheryl Hilton. She's going to share with us and um, just have a general discussion on how you select images and prepare them to be presented or exhibited. So I'll turn over to you, my dear.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Are we seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. So, I don't want this to be one-sided, right? So I'm going to be asking questions. I want people to talk back to me and that sort of thing. And the question for you is, because this is a conversation, you are going to be preparing to show a body of work. What are some of the things that you think about? Because I think the first thing you have to think about is context. So what are some of the things that come to your mind? Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Denise. Anybody else have any has a point? And by the way, guys, I'm not looking at the. Feel free to just jump in unless Dwayne wants to moderate. I'm not seeing the if hands are going up and that sort of thing, right? So just jump in and give your thoughts, please. All right.
Cheryl, I think cohesion is important.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be showing a body of work, how all the pieces within the body of work coalesce together around a theme. So similar to what Denise indicated before.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. So
Cheryl,
I'm going to, yes, Bruce.
I don't know if it's the most important thing, but I also think you should have a good idea of the audience that you want to attract. And
Agreed. Agreed. So I just jotted some things down that you'd want to think about. And there's no right or wrong answer, I believe. They all come together. First thing is, what's your theme? What you going for? What's a story that you actually want to tell, which speaks to the cohesiveness, right? So you have to have a plan in terms of the direction that you want to take. In terms of what you want to do you need to do research? And I'll come back to why that's important. Who do you need to speak to? Where will you go? What do you need? You need to plan. And you're thinking about things like location, people, equipment, props, because you can, as a photographer, you can go outside and just find anything that lights up the spirit and the heart. A lot of us love sunsets and sunrises. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We can go out there and find butterflies, etc. But sometimes you want to dig a little deeper. Sometimes you want to think about things that are happening in the world and how it is that you can actually model those things in such a way that people can feel the emotion that you want to evoke. And that requires a little bit more attention than perhaps, just going to a location and looking for the things that are simply beautiful to shoot, which of course have their place. But so with that said, what are some of the themes that and that pop into your mind given what's going on in the world today? Just anything. Don't think about how you want to shoot it. Just think about some of the things that come to your mind that you care about, that you think are important enough that they should be modeled. I'll throw one out. Since we started talking this evening, some people are complaining about how dry it is. Right? There is what's happening in terms of global warming. If you want to make it a little bit more immediate, El Nino, we have drought that's affecting our farmers. Is that something that we want to pay some attention to, that we can help to wake up the people who are supposed to be helping us to find solutions for things like those? That's what I mean in terms of looking for things, matters with perhaps a little bit more depth, right? We have the children who were kidnapped in Nigeria. We are talking about wars that are taking place in today, 2024. Now, I'm not saying that has to be where you go. Those are very deep topics. You can find things, beyond that. But I'm just saying, we can look wider. We can open our boxes a little wider in terms of what we want to look at, right? So again, if you want to tell that kind of story, then you have to go back and think about then how on earth would we capture that kind of image? How would we model that? What's the lighting that we want to use? What are the props? How would somebody dress? That's where your thinking becomes a little bit more stretched in terms of direction. So you have to, if you're going to do, if you're planning a body of work along those lines, obviously it's not something you can just get up one day and grab your camera and run, right? As we do sometimes. I do that all the time. Just pick up the camera and jump in the car and shoot. And you get lovely images that way. But if you want something that evokes a little bit more emotion and you want to climb into a little bit more depth, then you have to plan. You have to seriously plan. And so if you know that you need to deliver by a certain time, you have to use your time wisely. And then the thing that I would share and is enjoy the journey. And when I go into the next set of, or the next discussion, next point of discussion, you'll understand at the end of it, I believe, what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share with you the elements of a project I did when I did the intermediate photography program at Edmond Manning College. And we were asked to identify a social issue that we wanted to bring to the table. Now, probably wasn't the deepest topic, but it was something that mattered to me. I went to the topic of hear the voices of our elders and hear what I was trying to share with my audience. Too often, as a society, we ignore our elders. We don't recognize them for the treasure troves of wisdom that they are. I don't know if I can say newbies anymore because I think I'm on my way to becoming an elder, but we tend to think that, it's a new world, new ideas, and we know everything that we need to conquer the world. Not quite so. And we ignore our elders. We don't hear what they have to say and we discard them almost, right? So in order to do this project, first of all, I was like, who am I going to speak to? No idea where to start. So I started sharing what I wanted to do with friends and family and asking them to try to help me make contact with people I could speak to. And I had two persons who arranged some interviews for me. One was a coworker who, through his mother, set up some interviews with elderly people in Old Harbor. And that was, again, I'll share that part of it, to share elements of that journey with you. And the first person I'm going to talk about is a musician, Hylton. Meeting this gentleman for the first time. I've put his added the bio here for him because I would not have remembered all of this. He's a percussionist who played on albums by Beres Hammond, Boris Gardner, some of the notable names of that time, the Mighty Diamonds, Harold Butler. In his latter years, he did, and by the way, he passed last year. He did a bit of studio work, but had toured extensively and spoke of his trips to other countries, Switzerland, Burkina Faso, Seychelles. He had a fantastic life. And he toured with Burning Spear and is particularly proud of their live in Paris 1988 show. Now, this image is interesting. In this image, you see a very confident man. Well, I saw a confident man who has seen the world. I mean, and somebody saw this image and said to me, Cheryl, boy, this belongs in an album cover. Interestingly enough, so Hylton came to my mind sometime like about a month and a half ago. I was going through my phone and I noticed on his WhatsApp number that the image was different. There's somebody else's photo, and I wondered what had happened. And I looked up his name by using Google and realized that the gentleman had passed. One, this image that I'd given him is actually being used with his discography online. It's also the image used with his tribute, his musical tribute. Musicians got together and did a service for him at Ranny Williams Center, and they are using my image for that. Here is another image of Alvin Hylton looking far more vulnerable, as he shared with me that as a percussionist, his skill set, it was a dying art in a sense, in that they're being replaced by drum machines. Now, I don't know if anybody here understands and knows the difference a percussionist makes in when you listen to live music in particular. It's amazing. And he says, well, drum machines are replacing us, one. Two, when you're putting together a band to tour, you're thinking about the number of people, the cost. You don't take the percussionist, you take the bass guitarist, you take the keyboardist, but you don't take the percussionist. And so there wasn't a wide demand for him anymore to travel internationally. He had been focused on a lot of studio work. And I'll just share with you a little bit. Sorry. Hope this gets well very quickly. Okay. I hope it goes back to him very shortly. As a focus to different artists or musicians. That is Alvin right now. So just wanted to share that because it actually meant a lot to him. And this is what I meant about the journey. Remember when we started, we wanted to talk to elderly people and understand what their perspective is and how they saw the world. And when I went to pick, oh, sorry, my screen sharing is pause, resume share. Yeah, so when I took Alvin home, when I gone to pick him up to see him, I thought I was going to be taking shots at his home. Alvin turned up, having gotten a different perspective of what the shoot was going to be. But he'd gotten himself, a haircut, he's clean shaven because he thought he was going to do an interview in the papers or something of the sort. But he said to me, "Could you take me to a place where I usually hang out to take these photos?" And I said, "Sure." And we went down the road to a gas station and he sat there regaling us with his stories. My dad had come with me, same age group. They had a wonderful conversation, got into the music of their era, that sort of thing. I took Alvin home and, I walked him to his gate and I slipped a little change in my hand and said, "Listen, I can't pay you for your time, but I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this with me today." And the gentleman turned to me with tears in his eyes and said, I'll never forget, he said, "It is I who should thank you, not the other way around, because you have made me not only feel important, but look important in front of people who would otherwise laugh at me because they didn't believe his stories." Right? So that was very touching and important to me. This was actually the first gentleman I spoke to that day. Can't remember his name now, but he was 101 when I took this image. He was blind, but he had a spirit and an energy that was amazing. He was bedridden, couldn't get around, well cared for by his family, took pictures of all of them, his two daughters, his grandson, and they had a wonderful time. He apparently was used to this. He had been on Hylton ride apparently 2 times and apparently featured in a lot of different, activities of this nature. And so he was up to the he just had a ball. He had a great time with doing this. 101 years old. What stood out for me in this interaction was when hello? Hello? Okay, I'll continue. So when I held his hand was incredibly soft, which is interesting because he'd been a fisherman and active for something like 60 odd years. And in contrast, his daughters are salt of the earth, very strong women. Their hands felt much harder because clearly they were still at it in terms of hard work. No, the hard work also included just taking care of the father, and he was incredibly loved. I mean, the energy in that space was amazing. And, is one person who, in their old age is truly taken care of. This lady was not a part of my initial listing of persons to see. So as in Old Harbor, come out of the gentleman's place, you come out through the zinc, the opening in the zinc and thing, and there's a guy across the road and he calls to me, saw the camera around my neck, and I'm so, "What, I'm taking my picture now?" So my friend says to him, "No man, boss, you're too young." And I'm so, "What do you mean by that?" So the guy walks over and explains to him what I'm trying to do. And he said, "Then come take my mother, no man." I was like, "Okay, tell us about your mother." His mother too was 101. Not as popular as the gentleman we'd spoken to because her family now loved her dearly and were very protective of her. There were 3 houses on the property, and she lived in one with the daughter. The son who called to us and brought us in, he lives towards the front. The daughter was very hesitant about exposing her mother. So much so I almost walked away without taking the shot because I really don't like forcing people into something that they're not comfortable with. Eventually, she agreed, and she said she had to comb her mother's hair first. You know, she didn't want her mother to look, you know, there's no hair in the picture, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that they wanted to make sure she was presentable. And it took me, I laugh and say it took me like 2 years to edit this photo. And I think there was a later edit that's even this is softer than this. Because when I finished editing the photo the first time around and I looked at it later, I realized that I'd made it too hard. The contrast was too much. The woman had, there's a soft energy that came from her that no longer, you know, the photo did not capture. And I tried to fix that later on when I looked back at it. They said the eyes are the windows to the soul. And this woman was just so peaceable, so content, just very quiet in her demeanor and very polite. It was an amazing encounter. Each one of these people that I spoke about. No, this is Miss Herfa. Miss Herfa is hers was an interesting story. No victim in life, very strong personality. Gone through a lot, and I'll probably read a little bit of her. Well, I'll probably read the story for you. She'd gone through a lot and just continued to pick herself up and continue through life because she knew she had to, and there was no going around it. Now, in this case, because I'd gotten there to her very late in the day, she was getting ready to go to church. And in order to make her comfortable with the camera, she's literally getting dressed in the backyard here in front of me. I assured her I was not taking her, but I started taking shots around the yard. The lizard running through the grass, the banana leaf shadow on the wall, the window that stood out in the home in terms of the architecture, and the sound of the camera. She got so accustomed to it that when she started speaking and I turned the camera on her, she was completely natural. So when you see the images, you'd have thought that I'd known her for years. And because I got so many pictures of her and her surroundings and got her natural expressions, my project, actually, my body of work for that assignment became Miss Herfa and her tale. I'm going to read the piece that I wrote, and hopefully this doesn't take too long. Hear the voices of our elders. Our society must make it right and possible for old people not to fear not to fear the young or be deserted by them. For the test of a civilization is a way that it cares for its helpless members. That's a quote attributed to Pearl S. Book. As we age, we have to face the reality that the bodies that have served us, sometimes faithfully, for years start to slowly deteriorate. There are aches and pains, sometimes illnesses to deal with. The former can be dealt with given there are financial resources to rely on, but the physical infirmities are not the only concern. In today's technological age, where the world seems to move even faster than we have become accustomed, do we see the elderly? Do we really see them? Do we understand that these are persons who have lived long, usually full lives, persons who are treasure troves of knowledge and experience, persons we can learn from, persons who long to be listened to and want, no, need to be assured of their relevance to society? Herfa Henry is 72 years old and lives in Dagger Bay near the Old Harbor Bay fishing village where her daughter earns her livelihood today. To get to Miss Henry's home near the seaside, one has to leave the main road and drive on a path lined with homes shielded by zinc and chicken wire fences. Miss Henry reminisces that her house was one of the first solid structures in her community. Today, she laments that many hurricanes have battered the house, leaving it in poor shape, but she's adamant that she will not leave behind the home she toiled to build to live a life of being boxboard from one child's house to another. When I arrived, Miss Henry had already donned her church dress and her wig to cover her grays, as she was getting ready to go. She was willing to facilitate me, however, as she was bursting to tell her story. We stood in her backyard amidst the remnants of a wood fire and evidence of her former life, a freezer that had served its time, and old fishing nets, interrupted only by the chicken that ran around the yard and the ground lizards making their way through the dried leaves under a banana tree. It was there that Miss Henry took me through the twists and turns of her life. Miss Herfa, as I came to call her, raised 6 children on her own. She had no choice, she informed me, as her husband abandoned his family at an early stage in their marriage. She still seems to struggle to understand the reasons why, and this I found interesting. He lives in the same community quite near to her. I could actually hear him speak while we had our conversation. But Miss Herfa says that he made no attempt to contribute to his children's development, laying claim to them only in his later years. She decided that regardless of the circumstances she had to endure, that her children did well. She planted tobacco in Colbeck and used that money to start and maintain a shop, the first of its kind in that area. She relied on her mother to assist with holding down the fort, that is, running the shop on the days she worked at Colbeck until she got home. Today, Miss Herfa's children have gone off to live lives of their own, with one son remaining in the immediate vicinity to keep an eye on both his mother and father. Hard work is no longer an option as she has a heart problem which gets in the way. She finds solace in the stories, songs, and poems she writes in her black and white composition notebook, but longs to have them seen, read, and used by others. What was clear to me was that Miss Herfa had a lot to share. Lessons she has learned from her own life, unfulfilled dreams she still hopes will come to fruition, and is grateful for the opportunity to be able to share her story with persons ready to give a listening ear. She was reluctant to let me go. She had a captive audience for a while. When was the last time you sat down to listen to an older person for a spell? You may be surprised how much you gain from the experience. If nothing else, you leave with a sense of humanity and compassion, and they with dignity. So at this point, I guess you remember the part where I said, use your time wisely and enjoy the journey. Remembering and enjoying and having a journey that applies is very helpful when you have a body of work, because that's what people listen to. If you're ever in an exhibition, you realize that people walk around and look at the images and they try to use the titles to figure out what the image is saying. But if you're there on hand to tell a story, you have a captive audience. Any questions from anybody before I go on? Anything you'd like to comment on? Feel free. Going once, going twice. Right, I'll move on. So here's where we talk about sharing the journey. You have your body of work. How are you presenting your image? Again, the context? Are you participating in a competition? Are you trying to be included in an exhibition? Are you showcasing online or in a physical space? Is this meant to be work for sale? If so, what's or where is your market? Are you just doing the body of work because it's something that speaks to you and you want that in your arsenal? And when all of that is said, have you given any thought? And maybe not at the stage that you're creating your art and collating your images, but what's your medium going to be? Very important thing. And Terry earlier today spoke to this, the connection between your title and the image, right? How will you title your image? Is that something anybody here has any ideas on? Or maybe I should continue before. So here you have a guideline, right? I just grabbed this definition, or not definition, but this description or explanation because it aligns with my own thinking. When in doubt, when selecting titles for your images, keep them simple and neutral. Less is more or less. Good titles complement works by giving viewers more relevant information that makes their experience richer, indicating its creator's relationship towards a subject and medium and audience, suggesting but not limiting attention to dimensions of a work that might otherwise remain overlooked, all the while leaving room for viewers' extended interpretation. Now I have an image to the right. Does anybody want to just give feedback as to what they think the image could be called? You have no context, I know that, but just look at the image and what does it say to you? What do you hear when you look at that image? I'm waiting. Sorry? Fantastic. That's what you see. Any other ideas? So I'll give you a little bit more context by telling you exactly where this image was taken. This image was taken in Antarctica. And so it's a place called Nico Harbor in Antarctica. So what you're actually looking at is ice, right? So that said, anybody else want to volunteer a name? Don't be shy.
Yes.
I
Sorry.
would say chilly waters.
Yeah, good. Good. Dwayne, did I hear you saying something else?
Yeah, I was thinking chaos, all the fragments of ice colliding with each other.
Okay, fantastic. So the artist deliberately, so I went to this gentleman's name, I don't know if I don't even want to spell it, just pronounce it and pronounce it incorrectly. John Paul Caponegro. Use this as an example because he gave 4 different suggestions for names, and suggested that you think about the changing viewpoint as the names are read. So along the lines of chilly waters, it says freezing point. Because you can actually see you're trying to make the distinction between the water and ice, right? That's one. Other one is glacial retreat. Next one is simply blue. And the next one, clearly taking a very abstract view, is constellation. Does anybody sorry? Fantastic. And you realize that as you go through the names, that you take a different view of the image. It creates a different perspective, and that is why the naming of an image is so very important. All right, so let's move on. So I just threw these are my images. Anybody want to hazard a guess? Just and by the way, so I'll just share with you the names that I created for these images. It was done on the fly, so it's not hard and fast anything. Anybody just so the image to the left is more of an abstract. The others are like what you see is what you get. Any ideas as to what these images could be named? I'm not going to move on until I get some answers, And I'd love to hear from other people besides. I don't have a problem with hearing from Denise and Bruce and Dwayne, but I'd love for the other persons on the line to participate as well. So
The
please.
girl, I would call her Sunshine.
Which one? The one to the left?
The girl.
The girl because of the smell. Understood. Yeah, great. Any other ideas?
One to the left, fire and ice.
On to the left is what?
Fire and ice.
Okay, nice. I like that. I really like that. All right, so I'm just gonna move on, right? So I literally call the one to the left lava because that's what came to my mind at the time. The one is sunshine, I call it a moment in time, but then my context was I know what happened, right? I literally that wasn't a post picture. That was somebody moving and I snapped her and it was just but she has a beautiful smile. So sunshine is apt. And the other one is like literally what it was, Sunday afternoon reasoning. This was downtown Princess Street one Sunday during the Kingston Creative Art Walk. Right? No, it doesn't mean that these are fantastic names and the best names ever, but just, sharing perspective. So, this here, so let me just share with you first of all what this exhibition is about and how it came together. Kian is on the line, and Kian is on the call.
Indeed, I am. Hi.
I'm sure you recognize this, right, Kiki?
Yeah.
This was July, it was 2018. And it was an interesting time. I just started a new job and I found absolutely no time to participate in anything. I was supposed to have participated with a club, with a society at the Montego Bay Conference Center at an exhibition there, and I couldn't because I was just inundated. So it was very interesting what happened the very next week. An opportunity had come up and people had been asked whether or not they wanted to submit images for participation in an exhibition for Kingston Creative at F&B Downtown. And there are so many different things happening all across everywhere that people were going, oh, I can send 2 images, oh, I can send 3, but there was nobody to actually collate everything and put everything together. I had no intention of participating, and somebody had asked me, Cheryl, don't you have work? And I said, yeah. I said, find out from Ken if you could put in a couple pieces. So I was like half-heartedly, I reached out to Ken and I said, just checking to see whether or not you're fully subscribed, if you have space or you have need for additional work. I have a couple of pieces. And Kian said, oh, well, she asked me how many pieces I had. I told her and stuff. And I forgot all about this. And then Kian calls me back and says, oh, change of plan. You're it. And I was like, what? She goes, you're it. I said, what does that mean? She says, you are going to be the featured artist on Sunday. I was like, what you mean? So here's the thing. I think this conversation was happening about Tuesday or Wednesday. This exhibition is supposed to be on Sunday. I'm thinking there's no way I can do this and I want to back out. And then I said to myself, are you ever going to have this kind of opportunity or will this opportunity come back again? And then it was compounded. I said compounded because I said, my birthday is actually Sunday. It's just like the birthday gift I've been waiting on. Should I say yes? Should I say no? And I finally said yes. I had a problem. I couldn't even go down to look at the space. So I reached out to the persons at FNB and asked if they could send me a video, and they sent me a video on the Thursday. The Friday night was ridiculous. I had a meeting bright and early Monday morning with board directors, and here I am at 8 o'clock in the night in my office trying to finish everything that I have to do. Why? Because I know that when I leave here, I will not have time or energy because I know I have to focus on this exhibition. Interesting. I had canvas pieces in a roll that somebody was holding for me in an architectural tube. And I reached out to a young lady. She was on her way to Fiji. And I had to make contact with a friend of hers who was able to get the tube to me 10 o'clock in the night on some apartment kind of complex off Waltham Park Road. This is very interesting. Saturday, I got up on Saturday morning and armed with everything I have, took stuff off my walls and headed down to FNB. Two friends met me, Miss Aka lent me 3 easels. And when we left at 4:30, we had a mountain exhibition. That became possible because of work that had been done before, because of participation in the in Legany Art Festival 2 years in a row. There are things that I acquired that were useful to me. Some of the pictures on the wall, the ones here, if you can see my cursor, are actually entries from JCDC, right? Taken off my wall. In JCDC competition, so stuff I'd got merit awards for. Here is my artist statement, which I had used in a prior exhibition in February of that year. I come over to the right. So these pictures are very deliberate in terms of their inclusion. On the back of this photo here is my bio. So this is a photo of the image that's being displayed. I always have, I have a bio that was done up that's always affixed to my photographs. And at the very bottom here, you won't be able to read it, but what's going on here is the title of the image. All my images are titled, right? What I mentioned earlier about the journey is important because it is the journey that intrigues people. You recognize anybody in the picture? It's the journey that intrigues people and make them stick around and make them pay attention. This young man, I remember him. This is Miss Herfa, the image that was entered in JCDC. So I did a body of work for Edna, and then from that body of work, we extracted this one piece and entered this. This young man actually admitted he didn't know a lot about art, and he was there because he was trying to learn. And he was looking at the piece because he wanted to connect with it and wanted to understand what was being said. That's important to know and understand when you're putting together your work. So a question that has come up in relation to this, people ask, what's an artist statement? So I just did this to show you, this is not necessarily the best artist statement ever done, but this was done on regular letter size paper and printed on foam board. So this I could place it on a door or even put it on a rack wherever it needed to go. Other people do fancier, maybe more creative things. But the basic elements is a statement helps the audience to access or understand your artistic work. It is usually written in the first person. By the way, I learned that yesterday when I looked this up, right? Well, the artist bio are written in the third person. So my artist statement is written in the third person. So I will read it for you when I'm done in the first person. Content, there are different views as to what the content should be. And what I did here was share 2. One goes 3 elements: a broad overview of your ideas, explanation of the material, and a description of the personal philosophies. Option 2, the introduction to the artist and the work, materials used in the work, and explanation of the purpose of the work. Doesn't stop here. These are only 2. Google is your friend. ChatGPT can help you in terms of framing your ideas. Yeah. And then the questions you should want to answer when you're putting it together, I think is useful. Why do you make this type of art? What does your artwork represent? What inspires you? How do you make it? And what does your art mean to you? So let's hope I answer this in this statement. So in first person, I am an IT professional with a passion for photography, which has been a hobby since I was a teen. In 2014, I decided to take my hobby seriously and commence courses at the School of Continuing Studies at the Edna Manley College of Visual and Performing Arts under the tutelage of silver musgrave medalist Donit Zaka. As a first-time entrant, was the recipient of certificates of merit from the 2016 JCDC Visual Arts Competition. I displayed pieces during the 2016 Kingston on the Edge Urban Arts Festival and participated in the 2016 and 17 Ligani Art Festivals. I pay homage to the beauty in the everyday that we often take for granted and take inspiration mostly from nature. Pieces like Broken Shell and Flame were captures of moments in time which might have otherwise gone unnoticed. My use of photographic and editing techniques served to magnify the impact of my photographs, the level of detail, for example, in the Morning Dew series, and the use of black and white to emphasize the details in Hibiscus. Photography has become my main means of creative expression. Please enjoy. So that was my statement. I hopefully captured some of what, the questions that should be answered. So I've been talking at you for a very long time now. Anybody with questions that they would like to ask, comments, feedback?
In relation to the artist statement, based on the guide you presented, my interpretation, you can have either a generic statement that can be used with any display or exhibition, or you can have statements that relate to the specific exhibition.
Agreed.
Okay.
So you can have one. So this one that you realize that I would have quoted specific work, and it was work that was included in the exhibition, which is why it was relevant. In another space, I may have to make changes to adapt. I would say that my recommendation, you have a basic statement that is applicable anytime, anywhere. And if you are participating though in an exhibition or anywhere you're presenting, it would probably help you to personalize it or customize it and make it relevant for the situation. That's just my perspective. But again, so there are multiple perspectives that can apply.
Sure.
Any other thoughts? Any other questions?
Yeah, sure. Regarding the all your senior citizens photos, what was that, all natural lighting you used, or?
Yes.
Okay. Did you start to decide where you want to shoot, or you just decide to shoot you just wherever they were?
Some of them I didn't have a choice. So as I said, they again, they're senior citizens, and the two who were 101, I really had no choice.
Right, yes,
I had to leave them exactly where they were.
yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. With the
Cool.
others, it was with the gentleman that we did first. That was a little bit more organic. Like we could shift, that scene with the reflection in his glasses and that was just amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was more about the so for me, for example, if I wanted to go back and do a body of work on Alvin, I wasn't finished. I'd only taken a handful of photographs that day with him sitting in the space. I probably would have had to go back and probably arrange the scene with his, with his instrument and that sort of thing. So I would have had to expand the body of work to include more. So for me, that was just an initial meeting, so with her again, yes, there was placements like, in her backyard where we could get better light. But then I did that by just kind of moving around, not necessarily telling her move there, move here, because she was so engrossed in her story. I didn't want to shift her, or miss her thought process. But understand too that when I did that work, it was my early years of shooting. So I would have certainly learned a
Well,
bit more and probably,
yeah.
spent more time trying to frame and move people into places and spaces where it made we were able to maximize light. But yeah, it was natural light and it was more organic and just shooting people where they were.
Okay.
All right,
And you
Cheryl.
delivered it black and white. You wanted it not right. That's your
I deliberately wanted black and white.
black and
I
white.
thought
Okay.
because of just the what I was trying to focus on that was the appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Yeah, all
So
right.
I'll share
No
with you
problem.
that one of the things I did was I promised everybody that I'd shot I'd done work with that day that I'd return with photographs for them. And in doing that, some of the images I left in color. So that's that lady, her family got and when I'd gone back, she had passed. So they were
Okay.
very thankful for the photograph that they received. And I did it in color because it really brought out the softness and
Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Cheryl, Bruce here. You got me thinking about the artist's statement, and thinking like a marketer. I think that it is more advantageous to have a specific as against a statement as against a generic one that is applicable any day of the year. But if you speak to your current philosophy and material you're using, I think one has a better chance of reaching your audience.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. As I said, there are many perspectives, and you have to look at what makes better sense for you at a point in time. As I said, you can't disagree with that perspective. And what I was suggesting is that you have something generic, and if you know in advance that you are going to participate in a place and space, and you have context, then you customize it for that space.
And just to add, what can be beneficial in having a generic artist statement is because sometimes when you're asked to submit things just even about you, it's not hinged on any specific body of work, but more you and your perspective. And also it's beneficial to keep it very short if it's going to be that kind of general artist statement.
Thanks, Kiki. Any more questions?
Cheryl, I enjoyed your TED Talk. I literally just got home, but you kept me in rapt attention throughout the traffic. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you, Sharad. I really appreciate that.
Didn't expect anything less.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. If I'll wait around any more questions, and if not, then I'll hand back over to Dwayne.
In terms of a specific exhibition, do you find yourself going all black and white, all color, or mixed?
Well, honestly, so my more recent work is very colorful. Is Yeah, so it really depends on time and place, and sometimes, as I said, going back to what I said earlier, context. Because if you're participating in a wider exhibition, there are some things that you may not have a choice in that, in order to participate, you might actually be told this is what we're doing, right? And you have to conform. I think it is, again, it all goes back to what you're trying to evoke. I think the difference between color, and I'm using a lot of color and black and white, is that you can take an image in color and be distracted by a lot that's going on. And you can take the same image in black and white, and then your focus immediately goes somewhere. And it comes back to what's the subject and what it is that you want to communicate. Some people do total black and white because that's who they are, and they have a focus in terms of the imagery that they're displaying that they want people to latch on to immediately, so what dictates where you go and what you do is dependent on where you are, even in your growth. So I find that in recent times, and I can't even use the word recent, but a lot of work that I did. So I think the last thing I participated in, which is a good while back, is an exhibition through, again, Kingston Creative. And it was myself, Ulrich, and Dane Husey. And we called it Combined Perspectives because we each just put in the pot. We came together with our work, and then we decided what we were going to show, what we weren't going to show, and then how we were going to display them. And we didn't display by artists. We actually, that's why I call it Combined Perspectives. We displayed works that seemed to have some relationship to each other. That's what we displayed. And most of my work then was colorful, and it was more digital art. So it depends on where you are at a place in time.
Okay, cool. Would you say you have a methodology in choosing topics or the stories that you want to tell?
Not really. Again, it's time and place. And again, I have not been shooting recently. If I had more time, I probably would delve by subject. What I tend to do is when I shoot, then I go through what I have and I may tell a story from. So give you an example. Just before the pandemic, and we shut down, there was an opportunity, and a number of us all went out into the field, and it was an art walk that Kingston Creative put on, not the usual one downtown. There was a trench town art walk, and a number of us shot different things. And there was almost a protocol, right, in terms of how you display. It's not something that we agree on formally per se, but people just do it. I can tell you that I shot almost everything that day. First thing was somebody actually asked the person who ran the literary center asked if anybody had images. So what I did, because they would ask me to send the images, I post them to my page and then share the page within their group, right? So I posted the pictures that told the story of what happened in the reading center that morning. And everybody loved that. That's a story in and of itself. Then Dale posted his pictures from the cultural center, which I would not attempt to compete with because his images were off the chain. Like the angle, the focus, like everything was his pictures were perfection. So there's no way you're going to try not only to compete with that, it's senseless posting the same things twice. There's one thing I'd done though that was different from everybody else. It was how I shot the train in the train station in Trenchtown. And I did a section, I did a couple of images on that. I also did the ceramic center. What Miss Zaka did, and Miss Zaka and I were pretty much walking together, so we would have similar photos. Miss Zaka posted life in Trenchtown, like the man I pushed the handcat with the, from the fire hydrant where he went to catch water because there's no running water, things like that, the buildings, the gullies, where people congregated, that kind of thing. Again, that's a story in and of itself. So you can go out and shoot a barrage of things, but when you actually sit down, you go through and you decide on what you want to show. And so all of us were online posting pictures. Paulette posted pictures too, if I recall, on life in Trenchtown. But you don't want to be climbing over each other posting the very same things. So you get to focus on what it is that you want to show. And you want to, and as an artist, you probably want to show something different from everybody else. We did a trip to Swift River years ago when we were still the Edna Manley Photography Club. And at that point, I used to be very hesitant. I never used to post my pictures. And Patrick Planter called me out online and said, I want to see. And he started, all the women who are not posting, yes, he did that because that's Patrick. And he said, Cheryl Hilton, so and so, and I was like, why? And what I did though, so guess what? I took a lot of things that everybody else took. But what I posted was the animals of Swift River. Nobody was doing that. They post the dog, what them call them? There's a name I can't, but there's country fowl, yes. Butterflies. And then somebody said, whoa, I didn't see any of that. Right? And those images could have gotten lost if I had just posted everything else as well. But I decided to literally just call it as simple as it is, animals of Swift River. So sometimes it's not about focusing on taking a specific image, but once you've taken the images, you go in and you decide how you actually want to curate, what it is you want to share. And that's typically what I would do. Long-winded, but I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, I think I've talked enough for tonight, guys, so I'm going to run away now.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Cheryl. One of the key things that came out of your exhibition story was being prepared for opportunities. So because you were entering other exhibitions and having those opportunities to share and present your work, you had those pieces around. You were prepared for a much larger opportunity in that that solo exhibition that you ended up participating in. I think that's something that we all need to bear in mind. Shoot more, print more, and have works on hand ready for opportunities to knock on the door. All right, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I hope you learned something and you will transfer that knowledge to your current photography journey and beyond. All right, do have a good evening and do enjoy the rest of your night.
Night, everybody, and thank you again
Night.
for the
Good night.
opportunity and the attention. Night, night.
Night, everyone.
You're welcome, Cheryl. Good night.
Thanks for sharing, Cheryl.
You're welcome, Bruce.